continuation with Indian Economic Development textbook for class 11, which is now a syllabus for class 12. I'm continuing on with chapter 7 in unit 3. Chapter 7, that is employment, growth, informalization and other issues. So in this I'm going to read self-employed and hired workers. Does the worker population ratio say anything about workers' status in the society or about the working conditions? By knowing the status with which a worker is placed in an enterprise, it may be possible to know one dimension, quality of employment in a country. It also enables us to know the attachment a worker has with his or her job, and the authority she or he has over the enterprise and over other co-workers. Let us take 3 workers from the construction industry: a cement shop owner, a construction worker, and a civil engineer of a construction company. Since the status of each one of them is different from another, they are also called differently. Workers who own and operate an enterprise to earn their livelihood are known as self-employed. Thus, the cement shop owner is self-employed. About half the workforce in India belongs to this category. The construction workers are known as casual wage laborers. They account for 34% of India's workforce. Such laborers are casually engaged in others' farms and in return get a remuneration for the work done. Workers like the civil engineer working in the construction company account for 16% of India's workforce. When a worker is engaged by someone or an enterprise and paid his or her wages on a regular basis, they are known as regular salaried employees. So look at the chart. You will notice that self-employment is a major source of livelihood for both men and women, as this category accounts for more than 50% of the workforce in the diagrams. Casual wage work is a second major source for both men and women, more so for the latter, that is 37%. Now look at this gray portion, gray thing is self-employed, and the dark portion is regular salaried employees, and the uncolored one is casual wage laborers. So just to give you a rough idea, I've just stuck this green color here. Look at this chart 7.1. It's distribution of employment by gender. These are the male workers, and this pie chart shows you the female workers. Now in this, you'll notice that self-employment is a major source of livelihood for both men workers and female workers. Like, this category accounts for more than 50% if you see in the male category. 50 in both of them. Casual wage work is the second. Now self-employed, I put this green. The black, absolute black, is regular salaried employees, and third is casual work. So casual wage work, the casual wage work, as you see, what can you see here? It is the second major source of both men and women, source of work for both. More on for the latter. So for women it is 37%, and for the male it is 32%. So when it comes to regular salaried employment, men are found, if you're talking about regular salaried employees, regular salaried employment, men are found to be so engaged in greater proportion. You can see that it is 18%, and for women it is 10%. So one of the reasons could be skill requirement. Since regular salaried jobs require skills and a higher level of literacy, women might not have been engaged to a great extent, we find. Okay, so this is basically talking about this chart 7.1. Now we come to 7.2. Here the black, white and gray are distinguishable, so I'm not going to use the green one to show self-employed, green color. So chart 7.2, let me read: distribution of employment by region, which means urban workers and rural workers. So here we can compare the distribution of workforce, and we notice that the self-employed and casual wage laborers are found more in rural areas. So in rural areas, this is rural areas. So what do you find? That self-employed and casual laborers. So self-employed is this gray color, and the casual ones are the white one. So you find that they are much more in rural areas than in urban areas. And now in the urban areas, both self-employed, look at this, self-employed and regular wage salaried jobs, regular wage salary, look at this, regular wage salaried jobs and the self-employed are more, jobs is greater. In the former, since majority of those depending on farming own plots of land and cultivate independently, the share of self-employed is greater. So the nature of work in urban areas is different. Obviously, everyone cannot run factories, shops and offices in various types. Moreover, enterprises in urban areas require workers on a regular basis. So once again, let me just read out to you or show you. So what is 41%? It is self-employed. What is regular salaried employees here? 41% in urban areas. And casual wage laborers are 18%. So coming to rural areas again. So this grey part is 54%. So what is grey? Self-employed. And they gave a reason because most of them have their own farming plots, etc. And what is this regular salaried employees, the black portion of the pie chart? That is 7%. And the casual wage laborers or the wage earners are 39% in rural areas. Okay. So we come to employment in firms, factories and offices. In the course of economic development of a country, labor flows from agriculture and other related activities to industry and services. In this process, workers migrate from rural to urban areas. Eventually, at a much later stage, the industrial sector begins to lose its share of total employment as the service sector enters a period of rapid expansion. This shift can be understood by looking at the distribution of workers by industry. Generally, we divide all economic activities into 8 different industrial divisions. So let's just see which are these 8. They are 1. Agriculture, 2. Mining and quarrying, 3rd. Manufacturing, 4th. Electricity, gas and water supply, 5th is construction, 6th is trade, 7th transport and storage, and 8th services. For simplicity, all the working persons engaged in these divisions can be clubbed into 3 major sectors, that is primary sector, which includes 1 and 2, B. Secondary sector, which includes 3, 4 and 5, and C. That is a service sector, which includes divisions 6, 7 and 8. Now we come to table 7.2. This shows the distribution of working persons in different industries during the year 2009 and 2010. So distribution of workforce by industry. So here we have these. So primary sector, let's just take primaries, and so these are the industrial categories, as we said, 3 major. So primary sector is the main source of employment for majority of workers in India. Secondary sector provides employment to only about 22% of the workers. So this is primary sector is 53 or say 54% you can call it, and about 25%. So 25% of the workers are in the service sector. So this table also shows that 70% of the workforce, look at that, 68.0, let's just round it off, are in the rural sector. So about 70% of the workforce in rural India depends on agriculture and mining and quarrying. About 17% of the rural workers are working in manufacturing industries, construction and other divisions. And service sector provides about 15% of rural workers. So service sector provides employment to only about 15% of rural workers. Is that clear? So this is rural. So looking at that, about 58% of the urban workers, 58%, if you take that, 58% of the urban workers are in the service sector. The secondary sector gives employment to about 1/3 of the urban workforce. Look at that. Though both men and women, so now I'm sure you can understand the table. And in the primary sector, obviously urban population are just 7.5%. So you can just go through that. And looking at this, though both men and women, talking about this male-female division in the distribution of workforce, though both men and women workers are concentrated in the primary sector, look at that, primary sector, women workers concentration is very high there. Look at that, females are much more than what the males are there in the primary sector. Is that right? About 70% of the female workforce is employed in the primary sector, whereas less than half of males work in that sector. Men get opportunities in both secondary and the service sector. So just go through this table.